And thanks for the introduction, Andrew. So I'm going to take everyone further from home up to the eastern Canadian Arctic. That's where I've been studying the foraging ecology of the eastern Canada, West Greenland bowhead whale. Now, those of you who know me know a little bit about the epic failure I experienced in 2015. This was supposed to be my last field season. I was supposed to collect this really important information about bowhead whale feeding behavior and diet. And instead of collecting any information, I spent the summer on land. That's because we had unusual amounts of ice that persisted throughout the entire summer. Here's a little aerial video of the ice. This was blocking the fjord. There's a little bit of open water, but this is the mouth of the fjord. All of these fishing boats were stuck in the fjord. Now, luckily this year, the weather gods were much kinder to us, and we were able to conduct our field work. We didn't have bad ice, and we had quite a few whales that were accessible by boat. And in order to study their diet and their feeding behavior, we equipped several whales with non-invasive short-term tags, and these record the underwater movements of the whales. And we also collected information about their physical environment and also about their prey base, but I'm not going to talk about that today. So just to give you an idea of the type of data we can collect using the fine-scale tags, this is the dive profile of one whale that was tagged for about 13 hours. And on the y-axis is the whale's depth in meters, and then on the x-axis is time. And we've got some dives that occurred during the day and others that occurred at night in the shaded gray area. And so the main thing you can see here is there's a lot of variability in terms of where the whale is diving to. And the important part for my study is to figure out which of these dives reflect feeding events. And if we zoom in on just a portion of that data, you can see that the whale conducts relatively deep dives, going down to 300 meters. Yeah, sophisticated animations. Now, it may seem like 300 meters is pretty deep, but for a bowhead whale, this is not impressive. Many of the whales have conducted much deeper dives, down to 700 meters in some cases. Now, for these relatively deep dives, the whale spent between 15 to 30 minutes subsurface. Also, to your eye, that may seem like a long time, but it's really not that impressive for bowheads. We do have dives that have lasted 60 minutes onwards to 70 minutes. But what was a bit interesting was that following these deep dives, we found a series of shallow dives that were of considerable duration. And we have a couple hypotheses for what could be happening here. And I think the most probable one is that the whales are locating prey at two different layers. So I believe that they're finding a deep water prey source. Probably it's high in lipid content. It's worthwhile for the whales to dive deep. But then they're also exploiting a subsurface aggregation of prey. And this is something we'll easily be able to test as soon as we get our fine-scale prey data back. Believe it or not, but it's actually still stuck in Iqaluit, Nunavut right now. It's been there for the past 3 months, and we're waiting for it to be shipped down south. But we do have information about the vertical distribution of prey in the water column. So we'll easily be able to test these hypotheses and determine where the whales are feeding in the water column. Now, while we are also in the field, we are really fortunate enough to collaborate with the bowhead whale hunters. So this year they are harvesting one whale with a subsistence hunt. This is the community of Pangertung where we were based. And we spent 5 days on Kikiktuk, which is a historical whaling island. It's an uninhabited island. But this is where the American and also the Scottish whalers were based in the late 19th century. And here you can see a picture of an old Inuit home and the structure of the home that was built with some wood, remnant wood, and also some bowhead whale rib bones. And now if you walk around this island, you can find lots of artifacts from the old whaling days. So here we've got some anchors. There's also some oil processing tubs. There's actually an old above-ground burial site. So it's a very interesting location. It's a historical site. And it's where the current subsistence hunt takes place. There's also many remnants from bowhead whales and other marine mammals that have been harvested. So we were very lucky in that we were able to collect samples from the harvested whale, and this presented a really unique opportunity to collect really valuable information, to answer questions about the species that otherwise we would not be able to answer. So we collected things like skin and blubber from the whale, and this provides information about the lipid content and also can be used for stable isotopes. And that provides us with information about the diet of the animal. We also collected measurements on reproductive organs, on baleen and morphometrics, and most importantly for my work, we collected stomach contents. And this provides a fantastic opportunity to actually know what the whales are feeding on, something that otherwise we don't have the opportunity to know. And what we found with this whale was that it had consumed Arctic copepods. So these are small crustaceans. They're about the size of a grain of rice. They're really high in lipid content. And they're the same organisms that we were sampling in areas near bowheads. So this was really great because it showed us that, yes, we are sampling the food that the whales are eating. So it was definitely very helpful for our research to confirm the samples that we've collected. And so in terms of conclusions that we can draw preliminarily, the first is that bowheads appear to employ a flexible foraging strategy. So they appear to be able to forage at depth and also in shallower waters during August in Cumberland Sound, Nunavut, which is where our work was based. And they also seem to allocate a considerable amount of time to foraging activities. So we've observed what we believe to be feeding dives during the day and during the night. And we also believe that their primary prey, at least in this region, are these Arctic copepods, the calanoid copepods. Now, as with all projects, this project was very much a collaborative effort, and I'm very appreciative of all of our contributors, particularly Bill Koski from LGL Limited, Brian LaForest from World Wildlife Fund, and Thomas Seitz from VDOS Global. So thanks very much.
Any questions for Sarah? Say what? Oh, we get 2 online questions. There we go.
Okay, let's start with those online questions. The first one coming from Valentina, and she's asking, first of all, she says, great talk, and then she wants to know, how were population trends during the unusual mortality, and had they reached carrying capacity?
Oh, great question. So since the whales were almost decimated from commercial whaling, they have rebounded quite well. So it's not to say that they've reached pre-exploitation stock sizes, but their population is increasing quite a bit. And right now, I believe the population is over 6,000 individuals.
All right, and we actually have a second question, and that one's coming from Leonardo, and he's asking, is there a way to actually know that the whales are diving so deep to feed? And also, how do they choose where to dive for prey?
Yeah, also a great question. So once I have my prey data, I'll be able to map the density of food in the water column and overlay that with the depth that the whales are diving to. And that will provide a really nice visual of the prey field and will really determine which dives are foraging dives and which are not. But even without prey data, we can make pretty good inferences about what's a feeding dive and what's not, just based on the shape of the whale's dive. So I didn't talk about dive shape, but whales will often conduct what we call a square-shaped dive. So they'll dive down, and then they'll swim along the bottom, and then head back up. And while they're swimming horizontally at maximum depth, they're believed to be ingesting prey. So they're diving down to a depth where they found a good prey resource. But there's other dive types, V-shaped dives, where the whale will dive down deep and then head right back up. So they're not spending much time at maximum depth. And those V-shaped dives are thought to reflect exploration. You know, they're searching for a viable prey patch. So just by looking at the shape of the dive, we can infer what's a feeding dive from exploration dive. And then in terms of figuring out, what was it, prey densities? Forget the second part of the question.
Yeah, how deep? How do they know how deep to go?
Well, how do they know how deep to go? I don't know. A lot of people want to know how whales are able to find their prey. It's a really good question. There's various hypotheses about whether whales can smell their prey, whether they're communicating with other whales that have found a good prey patch. Understanding how animals interact with their environment and how they find their food is a complex question that I don't have a straightforward answer to at the moment.
Okay, and there's actually one more final question. This one is coming from Isabella, and she's asking, is there regulated whaling where you did the, and how does that work?
Yeah, also a great question. So bowhead whales, just recently, subsistence hunting has been opened up. And for this population, there's around 3 animals that are harvested annually from the territory of Nunavut. It is highly regulated. There is a veterinarian who actually participates in the hunt to make sure that it's done humanely, to make sure that all of the animal is being utilized. So it is something that is highly regulated, and as being someone who's witnessed the preparing of the animal and the flensing and everything, I can say that it does have a lot of cultural significance to the community, that the animal is completely used. I was very impressed with the utility of the animal because the meat is provided to the community. The baleen is provided to artists who are making jewelry. Same with the bones as well, are sent to artists that are making sculptures. So the entire animal is utilized, and it does provide a lot of cultural significance to the community. Yeah.
Oh.
Normally, no one asks bowhead questions. This is so great.
Oh, bowheads are fascinating.
They are.
Talk. I was wondering, from the blubber samples, will they also be looked at for toxins, seeing as that seems to be a growing problem in the Arctic?
Yeah, so the samples that we collected, many of them are going to Fisheries and Oceans Canada, and I am imagining that they are going to look at toxins as well. Which ones they're looking for, I can't say for sure, but yeah.
And I'm going to ask you one last one, which is, can you just comment a bit about the relationship between scientists coming from southern communities, working with the Inuit, and how you're doing outreach or how they're interacting with scientists?
Yeah, no, also a great question. So we've been very fortunate that the community of Pangatung has been very welcoming of us and of the work that we've been doing in collaboration with the community. So for the past 4 years, we've been working with the Killabuck family. They are expert hunters, boaters, fishermen, and they provide a lot of local knowledge about the environment and also about the whales that we're studying. And often while we're in Pangatung, the community will be radioing us, letting us know, oh, we found some bowhead whales, or oh, we actually found a group of killer whales that were harassing bowhead whales. So they provide all kinds of interesting insights and helpful information that we can use to inform our research. We also enjoy having community meetings. So we go to the Hunter and Trappers Association. We sit down, we talk with hunters, we talk with community members about the work we're doing, about observations that they see in their own backyard, and it has been overall just a really wonderful experience.
Okay, thanks very much, Sarah.
Thanks.